Well, world leaders have been reacting to the events in Sudan. The chairman of the African Union Commission has strongly condemned the violence and called for those responsible to be held accountable. The U.S. Embassy in Khartoum says the attack on protesters and civilians is wrong and must stop. It says the responsibility for stopping the attack lies with the military council, while the British ambassador to Sudan says there is no excuse for any such attack. Well, I'm very pleased to welcome the British ambassador to Sudan now to the program, Irfan Siddiq. He joins us via Skype from Khartoum. Ambassador Siddiq, thank you so much for being with us on Al Jazeera. The crackdown, from what we've been hearing, is far from over. There are reports that even hospitals are coming under attack. How concerned are you about the situation in Sudan, and what is your message today to the military junta?
I'm extremely concerned about the developments today. The forcible breakup of the protest site, with the killing of up to now 13 people being reported and hundreds being injured, and violence taking place in other parts of the city, including at hospitals, is absolutely condemnable, despicable, and there's no justification for it. We don't see why this is happening. There was a process of dialogue in place between Freedom and Change Forces and the Military Council aimed at trying to achieve the formation of a civilian transitional government. That's all been put at jeopardy now by this escalation and provocation. And as I said earlier, this must stop now.
The Janjaweed militia, the notorious Janjaweed militia who led, we know, a brutal crackdown in Darfur, are said to have been behind this crackdown on the Syrian camp in Khartoum. Who do you, as the British ambassador, hold responsible for this violence today?
It's clear that there were security forces, state security forces. I'm not absolutely sure if it was the rapid support forces or other elements who carried out this operation. The Military Council is responsible for ensuring security in the state, and it has used the argument that it is responsible for security to suggest that it needs to have a bigger role. But in carrying out this operation, it's shown that it is in fact one of the threats to security in Sudan. And we've seen that it has, as a result of its actions, lost the confidence of many of the representatives of the protest movement, which will only increase polarization and escalate risks of violence in the country. So I think the Military Council has prime responsibility for ensuring no further violence and for taking steps to build confidence in the situation.
Ambassador Siddiq, what is your message to the protesters? They want to continue their mass civil disobedience campaign, but there is, of course, the risk that there will be more violence if that happens. What is your message to them today?
I can't tell the protesters what to do. This has been a movement that's been led by Sudanese, expressing their own desires and wills, and they've been in the lead from the start. They have now decided to call for further escalation of the civil disobedience and for barricades to be put up on the streets and people to come out in marches to protest against today's actions. I think that's entirely understandable given the violence that we've just seen. We ask all sides to think about the impacts of the steps they're going to take. The Military Council bears primary responsibility for this escalation through the violence that it has used. The Freedom and Change Forces, I think it's entirely understandable that they now are suggesting that the Military Council is not a partner for them and that they don't want to work with it. But we need to ensure that there's no further conflict, that there's no risk of a vacuum of stability here in Sudan. And as such, there needs to be some process put in place to build trust and to try to agree a transition that can have the support of all of the Sudanese people.
Ambassador Siddiq, one last question, please, before we let you go. Many of the protesters that we've heard from, that we've been speaking to here on Al Jazeera, have said there hasn't been enough robust reaction from Western countries, from the international community. They say they want concrete action from the international community, from the UN Security Council, which Britain is a part of, and that the West needs to put more pressure on the regional allies of the military junta, i.e. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, that have pumped millions of dollars into Sudan, into the military, in order for something concrete to happen. So what concrete action can they expect from the West?
That's a reasonable request and expectation. It's something that we're considering now, speaking to our allies and partners to discuss. It's been clear, as you said in your report, that there's been widespread international condemnation of this act. We haven't been in a situation where the Military Council has provoked such great condemnation, and therefore there hasn't been a justification, in a sense, for the Security Council or others to take action against the Military Council. we're clear that security and stability in the country is the military council's responsibility, and they are responsible for the violence that took place today. So I think we'll be considering all options to increase pressure on the military council to avoid further violence and to move forward with the swift transition of power to civilians so that they are not the ones who are in control of the military at the time. So I think we'll be considering all these options. And as you say, the role of the region is important. We've had discussions with the Gulf countries who are relevant in this regard, particularly Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And up until now, they've been agreeing with us that they want to see a transition to civilian rule, and they want to see stability in Sudan. So I think we all need to work together now to ensure that those two objectives are achieved.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Thank you for your time. Irfan Siddiq is the British ambassador to Sudan, joining us there from Khartoum. Thank you for your time, sir.